Time for On the Clock, daily college basketball free pick show right here on WagerTalk TV. Yesterday, 2-2 for me. The client plays slight gain. I had a 4% play on Navy, which won. Air Force came through in the late window. And of course, the two I picked to talk about on this show, Radford and Boise State, both excruciating losses. Both came back from trailing all game to tie it late. Couldn't get over the hump. And so it sucks that I picked those for this show because I had a 2-2 day for clients. And, you know, I think, what do we go, 1-3 on the picks for the show? Total of the day continues to just kill it. Another total of the day win, and we'll have another one here today. But we'll try to get some winners on the show. As of right now, I've only locked in one 3% play, which I'm going to talk about here. And I would say my card will probably be finalized, I don't know, in the next hour or two. May have a 4. I actually, even though today is a huge card, I like tomorrow's. There's one game I really like tomorrow better. That you know, we'll see how today goes, but it's either going to be a 4% or a 5%. So that's what we're looking at for the next couple days. But it's on the clock. It's Thursday. There's a whole bunch of games. Probably why I haven't locked a ton in yet. There's just a million mid-major small conference games. So I'll probably add as the day goes along. But I think that the feature here is pretty clear. And in my opinion, that feature game is going to be Maryland and Illinois at 9 p.m. Eastern in Illinois. And let's get the 90 seconds on the clock. We'll get going on that one. So real quick, like, this was bet up overnight. It was 7.5, bet all the way up to 9, bet back down to 7.5. I think I agree with the later money here. I don't, you know, this isn't a game I see myself getting involved in, but, you know, I saw 9. Like, Maryland's a good enough bet. Like, they're a decent team. Like, I think they lack the marquee win. That's why they don't get a ton of respect. They have their chances. They had their chances. Marquette, Purdue, Oregon, but they don't have like the really nice win. That Villanova win didn't sort of materialize as like a real marquee win. And I think that's what kind of holds them back from like the market really, you know, giving them respect. They're 0-4 in true road games. So that might be playing into this number being a little bit inflated here, but I'll point out that none of those games were blowouts. They lost by 5 to Purdue, by 6 to Washington, by 4 to Oregon, by 2 in overtime to Northwestern. You know, you could say, okay, well, what, you know, Northwestern and Washington are teams you should beat. Listen, it's still tough to go on the road and win in this conference. And the loss to Marquette at home was only a 4-point loss. So really nothing they've done this year suggests that they're just going to get run out of the building here. You know, the defense hasn't been as good of late, but this is still a pretty good defensive team. They still rate out as a top 20 defense nationally. The offense is capable. I thought this was too many points. I thought 9 was too many points here. So at the current number of like 8 or 7.5, whatever it is, I still lean toward the dog. And maybe, who knows, maybe this is where Maryland will get that sort of marquee win that's eluded to them, or that's eluded them to this point in the season. But I just didn't think that they should be that big of an underdog. So we'll say Maryland plus 7.5 for our take in the marquee matchup. That's just a lean for me, as are all these total of the days, but the total of the day has been on fire. Another one last night in the Ole Miss game, and the night before, Tennessee, Mississippi State. Like, total of the day has been awesome. So, you know, we'll try to hit another one. And let's head to the Colonial. This is actually an early tip, a 5 p.m. tip between Hampton and William and Mary. So shout out to my buddy Corby Craig, who I probably wouldn't have this on my radar if it wasn't for him. But he kind of pointed out that this might be a good spot to take an under in a William and Mary game. And it made me think about something that I kind of wrote down prior to the season to circle back on late January, early February, that actually kind of makes this make a little bit of sense. So William and Mary first-year head coach, Brian Earl, spent the last decade up here coaching Cornell. And his teams were very, very – they were the same every year. This William and Mary team is just like the Cornell Brian Earl teams. They play super fast, crazy pace, up and down. They're trying to get to the rim. If they can't get to the rim, they're going to fire up a 3. And they'll give you points on the other end. They will trade getting up and down quickly. You might get an easy layup on the other end if you can get through their press. But that's just the way he wants to play. And to no surprise, William & Mary has been an over team all season. What I had written down prior to the year to circle back on was something that Earl has said on numerous times over the decade he was here in Central New York, in Ithaca at Cornell. And that was basically, my team was not conditioned properly to make it to March. A couple years ago, he said this about a Cornell team that got off to an insanely good start and had a terrible February and then sort of bowed out sort of quietly in March. And he kind of came back the next year and said, you know what, those guys, our team just wasn't conditioned. They weren't ready to play this type of pace and play like this for the entire season. It was why he liked this Cornell team so much last year. He said, these are all year 2, year 3 guys that understand what I'm asking for from a fitness standpoint. So I wrote down, does William & Mary fade off a little bit as we get into late January, February, being the first year a lot of these guys are playing the Brian Earl system? That's to be determined, but I could see a string of unders coming, because right now you're paying the absolute premium for a William & Mary over. And I do think, that pace is going to start to fatigue them a little bit. So we'll call this under. I forget what it was. I think it was like 147, but Hampton William & Mary under will be our total of the day. That'll bring us to the boots on the ground segment. Saw my buddy Joey Cheese posted this. So was looking for, a venue that I've been to talk about a game in a venue that I've been to. And I've been to Niagara a handful of times. It's not that far from where I live. They're in the MAC conference. So that was always back in the mid 2000s. That was always a really good, they had some really good Niagara teams, and we would take a ride out from Albany. It was like 4 hours out to Buffalo to see that game there. Niagara hasn't been as good since, but you know what? Don't sleep on this Niagara team from game to game. And the reason for that is Greg Paulus. This dude, I don't have enough time. I only have 90 seconds. This dude should be the head coach of Syracuse basketball right now, not Red Autry. It's Greg Paulus is a fantastic basketball coach. He gets no credit because he's stuck in Niagara Falls, New York, where no one wants to be. It's miserable. It's cold. It's basically Canada. No shade to Canada. I'm just saying it's not in an area that it's easy to recruit or keep players. He loses his best player every single year. At least one of his best players leaves the team, enters the portal, goes somewhere else, and yet he's got this team competitive every single year. The first year he was there, he got the job like 2 weeks before the season. Might as well have a JV roster and still basically managed to go 500 in MAC play. So Paulus is always going to be well prepared, and it makes them a very intriguing underdog because his teams always come to play. He doesn't get cheated. They typically give an effort, and that's kind of what I think could play against Marist here, having to go all the way to Niagara Falls to play this game tonight. Now, Marist, I was wrong. This Marist team is awesome. They very well might win this league. I thought they were kind of the overhyped side coming into MAC play, but they look every bit of a contender. John Dunn has been doing this in this conference for years. Tremendous defensive team. They're going to be a tough team to beat, but they play low-scoring games. They're fine playing a game in like the 50s and gutting out a 2-3 point win. And also, Niagara, like I said, it tends to be well prepared. They know Paulus knows exactly what Dunn's going to throw at them, and I think they're going to be up for this game. So I like Niagara +4. I think it was 4.5 at one point. I think the only reason I didn't put this on my client card was because Marist just had a sort of ugly loss to Ryder at home, where they lost as an 8.5 point favorite. So I was a little bit worried that maybe, you missed the chance to catch them off guard coming off that loss, but still, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a second straight loss for Marist. Niagara's just a tricky team. They hang around in games. They're 2-5 in the MAC, but like all of those losses, with the exception of Merrimack, are close and competitive. So I lean toward Niagara here. Not sure if it'll make my client card. And we'll finish up with one that will make my client card. I did play this for 3%. I laid the 3 points with Hofstra And we'll have to go back to Monday's show. I talked about Hofstra being the side I liked on Monday's show, did not add it to my client card. Thank God, because the way that game played out was awful. Hofstra had a double-digit lead at half. They were fouled. It looked like they were fouled on a three, down 3 with like 4 seconds left. They reviewed the play and said the guy's foot was on the out-of-bounds line. So instead of being fouled on a 3, the ball went the other way. Hofstra had to foul. Drexel makes both free throws. Hofstra comes down with a clean look to cover and misses the 3. So brutal if you had Hofstra on Monday. Hopefully a better fate for Hofstra today. They are back home. They are hosting Delaware. I think this is a nice matchup for them. First of all, they're at home. That's going to help make Delaware go on the road. The main reason I like this is Hofstra is very, very difficult to speed up. They are very good at controlling tempo. If you look at some of their games in CAA play so far, 60-55, 65-60, 66-63, 67-61 with a Charleston team that plays fast. And then 50, of course, the infamous 55-37 game with Northeastern. The reason I think the tempo matters here is Delaware is a bad defensive team, and they don't defend particularly well in the half court. So Hofstra is going to have some opportunities to score in the half court here. It also is going to limit the number of possessions, which is good because Delaware will fire up shots, and they are a pretty prolific shooting team. They're 30th nationally shooting the 3. They've got some really good shot makers on this team. But without Jair Davis, who's now at Syracuse, there's not a ton of paint scoring. A lot of it comes from the jump shot. And I think Hofstra can really make life tough in that regard. Hofstra is the best defensive team in this conference. They're a top 100 defensive team nationally. They have a rebounding edge. They contest everything. They play tough defense, and they slow the game down, which is not what Delaware wants. So I think Hofstra ends up bouncing back. Okay, that did go off. Okay, I think Hofstra ends up bouncing back from really a game that I think they should have won on Monday and gets the win at home here. Delaware is a team I've wanted to fade all season. So I saw a spot to fade Delaware and couldn't pass it up. I laid the 3 with Hofstra, 3% client play, and it happened to win the poll. So you get a client play here on the show. I'll be finalizing my card in the next couple hours. There's a good chance we'll have another 4% top rated college basketball best bet. Yesterday's one with the Navy on the money line, and hopefully we can win again today, and hopefully we can win the show plays today because I know a lot of you just tune in to see this. So there's 4 picks. Head on over to WagerTalk, wt.buzz/AT for all of my stuff. Follow me on Twitter at AdamTriggerWT. We'll see you guys tomorrow.